Welcome back, fantasy football fans. This is Fantasy Football on 5 coming at you once again right here on our YouTube channel. It has been quite a while, but you know what? We're getting back in the groove of things. And obviously, if you guys have been listening to the podcast, we are going to be bringing back the YouTube channel a little bit at a time. So this is our first video back, really, after the mock draft that we did recently on our YouTube channel. So this here is going to be the 5 secret tips to win your fantasy league. And tip number 1, we're going to start this thing off fast and furious with waiting on a quarterback. Obviously, we preach it all the time in our podcast, but why exactly should we wait on a quarterback, Parker?
Well, the simple fact of the matter is volume versus the draft capital. So I want you to take a look at this. So we can see right here, Josh Allen was QB1 last year. Josh Allen was actually drafted as the 10th quarterback going off the boards in most drafts. It obviously depends. It's not a guaranteed 10 through every draft, but consensus, he was drafted number 10. We look at Pat Mahomes. Yes, he only played 15 games. He could have shot up to 1, but he was finished at quarterback 4. Injuries are a part of the game, and he was drafted as QB1. So he retains pretty much his value of being the first overall quarterback. But let's take a look down here at Lamar Jackson at 10. Now, Lamar was drafted as quarterback 2 in pretty much every draft. It went Mahomes, Lamar, and he finishes at 10. Well, why is that? For various reasons. It's maybe a run-heavy offense. He runs the ball. He has a great rushing floor himself, but he just didn't finish with the same amount of points that Josh Allen or Kyler Murray did, where those guys were being drafted anywhere from quarterbacks 7 to 10. So, Taylor, there's a lot of volume waiting on a quarterback. So what round would you start looking at quarterbacks now?
Honestly, as long as it's not a super flex league, that kind of changes everything. But if it's not a super flex league, I would wait as far as maybe rounds anywhere from 6 to 8 to start looking, sometimes later than that, depending on how your draft goes. I definitely would not look anywhere within the first 6 rounds, though.
Yes, unless you're in a super flex league, but we're going to focus here on just standard redraft, no super flex. And unless you are in love with Mahomes or something like that, do yourself and draft him if you'd like, but we find value to come later for the quarterbacks. So that's secret number 1, waiting on a quarterback. Let's go to number 2 here. Justin Tucker has never finished as the kicker number 1. Taylor, can you believe that?
You know, considering Justin Tucker for a very long time has been touted as the best kicker in fantasy football, best kicker in football in general, and he comes out, is drafted one of the top 1 or 2 kickers every single season. He's always one of the first guys off the board. Mr. 82-yard field goals himself, okay? He loves to nail field goals, but the thing is he just doesn't get the volume as much as he used to. And it's not – I'm kind of shocked, honestly. You know, the Ravens have always put up points, even now with their running game being so potent. I'm shocked, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, his highest finish has actually been kicker 2, so he's come close. He finished 10 points behind Kevin Fairbairn in 2018. He's finished behind Matt Bryant in 2016. So he's come close, and he's obviously a great kicker, probably the best in the league. But when it comes for fantasy, everybody's drafting Tucker as the number 1 kicker. You got to look other places. So that's secret number 2. Justin Tucker has never finished as kicker number 1. So Taylor, let's go back. Look at tip number 3. Waiver wire moves correlate to success. And this is a very underrated secret.
Yeah. So for us here at Fantasy Football in 5, we believe in the waiver wire. That is how you win your league. It's not, you don't win your league when you go and make your draft. You can put yourself on the right path to winning your league. But at the end of the day, if you aren't making moves week in and week out to either solidify your team or make your team better, then that right there immediately makes your team pretty much on the downhill slope after the draft. Whereas if you are making those moves and you are finding guys who are breaking out throughout the season, because everything from running backs to quarterbacks and everything in between can have breakout, players. You see it every single season. And a lot of these players are on the waiver wire, believe it or not, at the beginning of the season and throughout the season. So if you can be smart with your moves, find guys, find values on the waiver wire. Now, we're not saying just go out there and pick up guys willy-nilly. All right, you got to look into it. You got to figure out which guys have been producing consistently, which guys are now having the opportunity to produce. Maybe they are getting more, the matchups. Maybe they're getting more volume due to an injury or something like that on their team. So anything like that can really be the deciding factor on who you should pick up on the waiver wire. But at the end of the day, you need to be making waiver wire moves throughout the season in order to win your league and win any sort of matchups from week to week.
Right. The old adage of you don't win your league on draft day, you win it throughout the season could not be more true. And we saw last year with James Robinson, an undrafted guy in nearly every league, comes out and one of the best rushers in the league. There's stories like that every single season. We'll have to tune in and see who it is going to be this year. But we are on to tip number 4. The number 1 overall pick is not your friend. Now, this is this could be an unpopular opinion. Taylor, I know you've had the number 1 overall pick before in a couple of leagues. Do you like it?
I absolutely hate the number 1 overall pick because that long wait absolutely kills you because there's so much value that is flying off the board. And while, yes, you get probably a person, if you know what I mean, in terms of overall scoring, but there's a chance that whoever you pick at number 1 will be the number 1 scoring player on the season. But at the end of the day, when you sit there and you get number 1, you have such a wait till your second pick that there's so much more value if you have any other pick because there's just a little bit less of a wait and you can stack 2 really great players on top of one another. And that ends up equaling out to having the possible number 1 player in fantasy football. So that's just the way I like it. I'd rather have, somewhere between picks 4 and 10, honestly. That was kind of where I like to fall.
Yeah, and not to mention a lot of leagues now are moving to this 3rd round reversal idea where if you're not familiar with that, you have the first pick. Great. You'll have your end of the 2nd round pick, but instead of having that beginning of the 3rd, it reverses. So the 10th or 12th player gets the first pick in the 3rd round. So you have to wait even longer. So the value of the first round pick is really up in the air right now. And I actually have a couple of things here. I stumbled upon this article from The Athletic the other day. It was talking about the number 1 overall picks from the past 30 years of fantasy football or so, dating back to 1990. All right. And 17 of the 30 consensus first round picks retained their first round status, meaning that they finished overall 1 through 10. All right. Pretty good. That gives you like a 56% chance that, let's say, Christian McCaffrey this year, who's probably the consensus number 1 overall pick, he will finish as overall player 1 through 10 in your league. Furthermore, if you look deeper, 5 out of the 30 picks finished retaining their number 1 overall status. Those guys like LaDainian Tomlinson of his 2006 season, CMC of 2019 when he had 1,000 and 1,000. Those kind of guys finish as number 1 overall player, and they were drafted to be that way. And when we dig even deeper, 3 of those 30 picks finished with less than 90 total points on the season. Now, that was due to injury in the case of Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Ickey Woods back in the 90s. But that dwindles you down to like a 5% chance or something like that of the first overall pick this year being a bust per se, whether that be due to injury or just horrible on-field play. Chances are the first overall pick is going to get you anywhere from number 1 overall to number 10 or 12.
Yeah, that's pretty good insight in terms of how to look at the number 1 overall pick. So there is value. Like we said, there's a chance that you're going to get the number 1 overall guy when you're picking there, but it's such a loss in value after that pick that, in my opinion, it's not really worth it to have the number 1 overall pick.
Right. All right, Taylor, let's move on to our final tip here, which is number 5. Do not draft numerous players, which is more than 3, from the same team. This is called stacking. Taylor, can you explain what a stack is?
So a stack is when you go and in your draft, you decide, let's say in the first round, you got Patrick Mahomes. Okay. And after you got Patrick Mahomes, you decided, oh, I want to get Travis Kelce in the turn. So you get Travis Kelce, and then you somehow get Tyreek Hill. Okay. Let's say you get all three of them, which probably would never happen, but let's pretend. So you got all three of those guys and you have them all on your team. Well, what is the problem with having all three of those guys on your team is when, let's say, their bye week rolls around or something like that. And then all of a sudden, you're rolling into a bye week and you have all these different players at different positions that you need to replace. And that pretty much immediately means you're going to lose that week because there's so much value in terms of points value that you're going to lose in that week. And it's going to be really hard to find good replacements for all of those players at one time. So that's why when it comes to stacking, unless you're going to throw throw that whatever week it is that they're on bye out the window and just count it as a loss at the beginning of the season, which I've seen people do that and succeed, but it's a lot tougher to do that. And I think the stacking at the end of the day really kind of hurts your team and also just hurts the way that your overall season outlook is, because if you look at a team, most of the time, not everyone is going to perform well on that team in every single week. Okay. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce will have a great week, but Tyreek Hill will have 4 points. Okay. So really at the end of the day, most of the time, only one or two of those guys, whoever they are, is going to perform well for you in a week, because you can't see an offense consistently every single week have 3 superstars on your team. So that right there really is going to hurt your team value at the end of the day. And that's why you got to get players from different teams. Even if you are a fan of a certain team, just get players from different teams, just because at the end of the day, it's going to hurt your overall team value.
Yeah, and stacking is a popular thing to do in best ball leagues, which is basically you draft a team and then you don't set the lineup. So you're kind of riding on these team success throughout the season. And popular stacks that I've seen throughout this season, especially the Chargers here, we can see Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, and Austin Eckler. Wide receiver, quarterback, running back. Now, those are typical stacks. I've seen some people, maybe they'll mix it up, do quarterback, kicker, and tight end, something like that. You have to find your niche and see what teams can sort of work. Another popular one is the Bucks, with Brady, Godwin, and Evans. And now you add in maybe Gronk or Ronald Jones or Fournette. It's a stacked offense, but that doesn't necessarily equate to fantasy success.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I personally don't like stacks because it really hurts your team in the long run. I think unless you're doing like a best ball scenario and you really believe in an offense, say like the Kansas City offense, and you're like, I really think that they're going to put up 5,000 yards through the air, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have 2,000 rushing. Not all of them are going to work out, all the players in the said stack. So because of that, I'd rather take a chance on different players from different teams who, at the end of the day, there's not always enough volume to go around for all these players.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So those were our 5 tips. We really hope that, you might not have known these. So that's sort of what we're trying to get at to you, is like there are little ins and outs to the fantasy football world that are really important to know and can really help you win a week, even if it's just by a couple points. So Taylor, as we wrap up our first YouTube video back on here in quite some time, anything you'd like to say?
Just thank you guys for tuning back in. For all of you previous people who watched us when we were on our YouTube channel, welcome back. It's been a while, and we're very excited to come back and do this on a more regular basis. And if you guys have not been listening to the podcast, definitely go follow us. Parker will give you that information and where to find us. But until then, good luck, and hope you guys have a good draft.
Thanks, Taylor. So once again, this was Fantasy Football in 5, and we thank you for watching here on our YouTube channel. Not listening this time, but watching. We have opened up rooms in our listener league for a B league. We have an A league full. You're going to get a B league now. So if you're interested in finding a fun league and a competitive league to play in, we have the answer for you. You can find us on Twitter at FantasyFBall5. I'll leave a link for that in the description. So you can go ahead and follow us there. DM us, just say you want in the league. Our cutoff is going to be August 1st, and we'll be drafting shortly thereafter. So we hope to see you there. But for Taylor Knowlton, my name is Parker Neal, and we thank you for watching.